You didn't have this perfect cadetship doesn't mean that you can't still be a general down the road.
Welcome to the VMI Center for Leadership and Ethics Leadership Journey podcast.
This podcast aims to share leadership stories from our VMI Corps cadets and high-profile leaders who visit the Center for Leadership and Ethics in VMI Post. We're on this journey with you. Hey, I'm Emily Coleman.
Hi, and I'm Derek Pinkham.
And we're your host of the podcast.
Carrie Papke graduated from VMI in 2007 with a degree in psychology. She received her master's degree in project management from the Citadel School of Engineering and served 7 years as a communications officer in the United States Marine Corps.
She is founder of To and Fro Activewear, a luxury ath-leisure store located in West Michigan. She gave us insight into her leadership journey through VMI and her career, tips and guidance for cadets and others who are in the leadership field, whether it's the military or civilian world, and how to overcome pressures we might face in our own leadership journeys.
We sat down with Carrie during our 2019 Leadership and Ethics Conference, where she was a guest speaker.
And without further delay, we give you Carrie Papke.
So just tell us a little bit about yourself, what led you to VMI, what you're doing now.
It's really a broad question.
Yeah. Like, how'd you get here?
Well, I chose VMI, probably a lot of female cadets, same reason. As I feel like most of them, it's because you want a challenge. You know, it's not an easy choice, and especially knowing that you're going into being quite the minority. I just knew I wanted to become a military officer, and I feel like people chose certain schools because they're a good music school or a good business school, and I felt like if I was going to be a military officer, I should go to a military school. And after my cadetship, then I went into the Marine Corps as an officer. I was a communications officer. I was stationed down in Beaufort, South Carolina at the Marine Aircraft Group 31, so with a bunch of fighter pilots. While I was there, I was deployed to Djibouti, Africa, where I did global force management at joint staff level, so it was like planning mission requirements 5 years out. Came back, I finished my first duty station in Beaufort. I got my master's degree from the Citadel in project management, and then I came back up to DC, where the Pentagon, I worked in programs and resources as a investment analyst, and I also submitted the IT budget for the Marine Corps. After that, I met my husband, and I decided to get out of the Marine Corps, mainly because I felt like as a female, it's very hard to, as a female service member, it's very hard to have a family in the military, and I kind of met a female general that was going through some issues, and it just made me realize that, you know, I probably had two choices, either to be happy or to be really successful, and what did I ultimately want at the end of my life, and that was, you know, I did want a family and feel like I wasn't making a lot of sacrifices for my family. So I got out and I moved to Grand Rapids to be with my husband. We have a daughter together. I also have 2 older stepsons. I got accepted into GE Aviation's Junior Officer Leadership Program, and that was like a 3-year rotation where they actually develop military officers into executives at General Electric, and I did really like that company. It was great. The only thing I struggled with, I wasn't a pilot and I wasn't an engineer. So it was very hard to be super passionate about like source lines of code where it was just like a little function in an aircraft and be super enthusiastic about it. You know, it's one thing in the military if you have, like, you rotate a lot, so you might have a bad job or have a position that you don't like, but at the end of the day, you're still a Marine, so, you know, you have that to really be proud of and work towards. But being in the civilian world, you know, you don't have that as your backbone, so it's just your job or nothing.
Right.
So when I got pregnant, you know, my husband asked about me like possibly staying home, and we both agreed it was a good idea. I stayed home for about 8 or 9 months, and we figured out it's just really hard. No, like when you work so hard for most of your life, I mean, going straight from a military school where our days are jam-packed to like military and deployments and doing a master's degree while, you know, in the military, it's like, it's hard. And I know like being a mom is a really hard job. But at the end of the day, I wanted my daughter to also see me working towards my own goals and dreams and stuff, and having something that she can see that, hey, I put myself out there, whether it's, you know, a failure or a success, you know, I tried something unique. And then we were looking at possible investments. My husband was going to start looking to start a restaurant. We didn't know if that short sale was going to go through it was a really unique historical hotel that is being changed into a restaurant. And then we started looking at other opportunities. And then I thought about, well, what am I good at? What do I like? While I was at DC, I was also an activewear blogger. So I reviewed a lot of different activewear labels and gave my recommendations, especially being in the military. I understood how like clothing and stuff was fitting, like for performance-wise. And I always had the idea of having a store. So that actually was really weird because it was something that was on the back burner that I really didn't even think about of doing, and it just came to surface. And then we started to and fro activewear. It was very successful. It's kind of I would say luxury, but it's definitely a little up in your premium price for like leggings and sports bras. But we do that because we want to have really good quality. We're kind of like an Anthropology in the sense that we have a lot of different brands under one roof. And we're starting to develop our private wear labels. While I'm doing that, of growing a business and getting off the ground, I've been really good about using my military experience to kind of train my staff to be self-sufficient. And I think that's been a really great reward, especially recently, because while we're in kind of a startup phase in the first year and a half of business, it's not very wise to be constantly extracting your money to live on. And for me, the easiest way for me to extract money out of the store would be to work in my store in the mornings. Well, in the mornings, that's when I have my long-term staff, my, you know, stay-at-home moms, or my ones that, you know, they're not in college and just going to move on to the next thing. And I really value my staff, and I value their capability, and I didn't want to lose them on make a permanent decision over a temporary problem. So I decided that, you know, I do have a lot of value, so I started to look for work opportunities outside of my store. And that's what led me to Happy PR, where I am their new marketing manager.
Awesome.
So it's nice because I can have some new skill sets. Like I didn't have a PR background, but now I get to learn about PR, and that also ties into my store, and it's a good benefit for me.
Yeah. So are there other areas that you also identify that you think, oh, I need to know about that too?
Yeah, I mean, just definitely the PR and marketing part, that's really important for me. We've been really learning about how to get customers and their thought process, especially when you have economic downturns or people wanting to do more Amazon shopping. Right. You're constantly like having to put yourself in the customer's shoe of like, why do they choose you over other people? I think for my store, how I train my staff is that our competition is essentially e-commerce in your pajamas. So it's like you need to have really good store experiences, be there, be available for them, but don't be down, you know, don't be asking them, what do you think about this? What do you think? You know, here's about this. Let me tell you about this. It's like, I know for me as a shopper, I don't like to be bothered in a store. You know, so we'll do recommendations. We might throw things in their fitting room, but, you know, we won't follow up about it. Like I train my staff to be kind of like that. If you go to a luxury store, like if you were to go to like an Hermes or a Chanel, they're really good about just being there in the background and helping you when you need it. And it's also, it's not even about like the snooty behavior, it's about relationship building. Like they'll know everything about you. They'll know your likes and dislikes. You know, we want to, with our customers, have really great relationships where we can ask them about their upcoming race, or how did their shoulder surgery go, or you know, a boyfriend will walk in, or husband, and say, oh, well, this is what they bought recently. This is the type of styles they like.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have that elevated customer service as well.
Right. Awesome. Well, so where do you draw inspiration from as a leader? And where did you draw inspiration from at your time at VMI?
It's hard for me to say where I draw my inspiration from, just because I don't feel like it comes from one particular person. And I hope this doesn't sound bad, but a lot of my inspiration draws from who I don't want to be or what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of like people, they don't see it like that. They'll have bad experiences, they'll dwell on it. For me, it's like, you have a bad experience, you can't help it. There's nothing you can do because it's essentially in the past, and the best thing what you can do is put it in your toolbox of how you don't want to be. So for me, for example, getting my employees trained up, so if we do like some merchandising, they've been really good about doing the merchandising for me, when it used to be like I did it all the time. Well, now we had some new employees try it themselves, and they want to show me. And if there's a couple of things wrong with something, you know, some people might come up like, why did you move it this way? Why did you put it here? You know, and they're not attacking you, they're just asking you why. But they don't realize that when you come off with what is perceived as hostility, it could be very off-putting for growth. So like taking these like bad experiences that I've had, whether it was as, you know, a cadet or in the military in a normal 9-to-5 job, it's really shaped how I see myself and how I develop. And I'm like, oh, you did a great job. Thank you for doing this. This was just unexpected. And it's like, and then as an afterthought, I'm like, oh, by the way, if you do it here, you should think about this, you know? And I think like, going through that mindset, that has been my inspiration of being a leader, is making sure that I also develop them. Because to me, it's like, I think some of the old school leadership is, oh, we don't want to grow them too much, or we don't want to poof them up too much, or they'll just leave with a good opportunity. And I think of it kind of like almost like a parent role. You either have that one officer or leader that tries to put the fear in you and tries to scare you and submit you, but then you're just going to do your job. You know, you're going to try not to get in trouble, so you might even hide things from them because you don't want them to get upset, but you're not going to really put themselves out there. Like, you're not going to try new things or present new ideas. And then you have the other leader type, which is what I prefer. It's more like that dad role. It's just like, they're actually really proud to work for you. They want to make you proud. They want to try things, and they want to do good by you. And I think you can still be stern and strict, and still, it's not like you have to be a buddy with them, but you're also growing them. You're encouraging them, talking to them, you know, being there for even like some of the smaller things, like showing, you know, hey, nothing is above you and whatnot.
Yeah. What advice would you give cadets that are trying to get into leadership roles here at VMI, or that are already in leadership roles and want to enhance their skills?
I think if you don't have a leadership position right now, I think the hardest thing for cadets is being heard. And I think that takes a lot of confidence. And I think sometimes it's the individual that holds back on themselves and not speaking out and saying what's on their mind. They think, well, I don't have this position. I'm not a ranker, or I'm not the RDC, I'm not cadre, I'm not even Ret Challenge, you know. And I think ideas generated aren't always just by the smartest person in the room. Sometimes even the smartest person in the room can overcomplex a very simple idea or even process that needs to be fixed. I think that even, you know, your what would be perceived as an average or below average cadet could have just as much value as someone very high in the Corps of Cadets. So I would say, you know, don't be afraid. The biggest advice for them, I would say, is have an idea, know what the issues are, know why the issues are happening, and how you think that you can make it better to go forward. I think if you just come up with an idea, then they're not going to be heard as well. If you're just like, oh, this is happy to suck, sorry, this happens, you know, I think you should do this. It's like coming into maybe whether it's faculty or commandant's office or even another cadet and saying, hey, this is what I've been seeing happening. I would really love to sit down with you and go over with it. To me, like, that makes you a leader, and you don't have to be, you know, you don't have to have rank, you don't have to be in charge of anything, but just being able to recognize that, you know, maybe you feel like something should be differently, or someone shouldn't be doing that because it's harmful to the organization. Being able to have that voice, I believe, makes you a leader, and it doesn't matter whether you're a ranker or not. It's just your execution of it.
What leadership roles were you involved in when you were a cadet?
I actually didn't have too many leadership roles per se as a cadet. I did a lot of clubs. I did band, I did Glee Club, I did track and cross country for the first couple years. And then infamously, I was on the cheerleading team. I guess you could say I was the cadet in charge of that. I did have rank my first class year, and that's where just odd things happen. You have to just learn how to deal with it. I was never a ranker. I just thought it would be cool to do like S7 or S5, and I just wanted to help with like fit life or help with athletics. That's what I felt like I was good with. Well, I guess VMI thought otherwise. They threw me into like the 3rd platoon lieutenant, and at first I'm like, what? Why did they put me there? And so I think like that's looking back at my life experience, that's life. That's life. If you expecting or thinking, okay, I just want this or nothing, then they throw you in something else.
Right, but someone certainly saw something in you and said, she would be good for this.
I would hope so.
Yeah. Well, even though you didn't, so that's taking some outside influence and being open to doing it. And that was very hard for me. Right. That was a very hard role for me because I didn't feel like I earned it. I wasn't this ranker in the company as a 2nd or 3rd, and I felt like I probably potentially took away a rank from another cadet, but it's part of being a leader that you get it whether you want it or not, so you're having to learn it. Like I'm dealing that with my stepson right now. He doesn't want to do football, but we require them to do 2 sports, one in fall, one in spring. They can pick, they get any kind of choice, but he doesn't want to be there. I'm like, you can't change that fact, so he doesn't want to try. You can't change the fact, you might as well just go with it. They get so resistant to it. It's like, if you can't change the past, you just need to go with it, because if you fight it, you're going to be struggling. It's going to be a struggle for others, it's going to be a struggle for yourself. So if you get that job or even that rank or that leadership position you don't want, just make the most of it. Don't fight it back.
Do it.
That's a nice attitude.
What skills did VMI help you build on in your career now, coming out of the military into a civilian world? What skills did you take with you?
I definitely would say it's definitely an odd one to reflect back on, just basically adversity in general. I think I had a few hardships as a cadet throughout my cadetship, and I think because I did not have that picturesque cadetship of I went to be cadre, and then I was a ranker, then I had my hack stars. I was finding my voice. I was figuring out what I wanted to do as a cadet. I didn't have, I wasn't in the cadre, but yet I was an athlete, I was in the band, and I didn't have a set, like, this is what I do. And having that compared to, like, other people, it kind of made me a little lost. And I think having that adversity instead of having that picturesque cadetship has really made me be able to pivot. It's made me handle, like, stressful situations and just, being used to having things that, honestly, you just don't go your way. Because I think some people might have that mentality of your efforts equal success and reward. But the reality is, and I think especially, like, an entrepreneur mindset, is that hard work and effort doesn't mean success, that it can also still equal failure. And I think like learning and understanding that early has made me understand that while some people, they don't have that adversity and they don't have that struggles, not saying that they might crumble under the pressure because they just haven't had to deal with that for their time.
Yeah.
What advice would you give, or is there any advice that you would give to cadets graduating and going, whether they're going in the military or just into a civilian job?
This advice, I would say, would also apply for cadets that are currently here, too.
Yeah.
And whether you're in the military or you're in the civilian world, if you have a hobby or if you see something that just sounds interesting, you should pursue it. You never know what will come of it. For example, I thought it would be fun to have a blog. I did it for a while I was in D.C. It gave me a lot of information of how, like, social media influencers work, how social media marketing works, how, like, HTML and website development works. And then when I got to Grand Rapids, I was interested in graphic design. I took a Adobe Illustrator class at the Kendall School of Design. That also just, even though I didn't directly use it right away, it just gave me that skill set to use. So you never know what your likes and your dislikes are unless you try something. Right. So if there's any kind of little interest and it doesn't affect your day-to-day task, go and try it. Take a class. You think it might be fun. Don't say, I don't want to do that because I'm never going to use it again. You might find you have this whole nother passion. When when I was in Beaufort, I thought I would hate golf. I mean, like, I thought, like you could not pay me to go play golf. Actually, we had a 4x4 scramble and happening on base, and I had these Marine officers come up to me like, hey, we need a fourth. I'm like, nope, no. Like, I've never even picked up a club. This is a horrible idea. I was like, you would think that, it's like, you would not, no. Yeah. I was like, I don't even want to be there. I was like, oh, you get out for a day. I'm like, no. I was like, and then they guilt tripped me after. They came for me like 2 or 3 days. They kept knocking on my door, begging me. They're like, but we won't be able to do it if you don't. I was like, you could ride in the car. I'm like, fine. You know, and I did it. I was horrible as expected, but I had a really, really good time. And it actually ended up turning into a hobby that I had even when I went up to the Pentagon. I did very badly if you ever look at my stats, but I actually ended up earning a spot on the all-Marine golf team. Don't look at my score. It was horrible that day. Tournament golfing is completely different. But it just shows you never know what you may like. I mean, that was something even I wouldn't have done. Even if you gave me a free voucher, I would have just left it on my desk, you know, but I pretty much got guilt tripped by my buddies and then found out I had an amazing time. So I just think, you know, having an open mind, like, you may not know where your career leads you. It's like, don't be afraid. Even as a cadet, like, you don't have to have that picturesque cadetship. If there's something that you really want to try and do it, like my first class year, I kept seeing pictures of the fire department, like the cadets that went over and volunteered with the fire department. That was so interesting. You know, I thought about it, like, well, it'd be kind of weird. There's no other females there, and it's a really small group. And then finally, I just got the courage, and I got the courage to go stop by the fire department and talk to them, see what it was about. And I actually ended up being the very first female firefighter in Lexington Fire Department. And yeah, and I actually really enjoyed it. And my biggest regret was just not having the courage just to try it earlier. That's awesome. Because I liked it. Yeah. And they were very warm and receptive to me. Yeah. And I think they did try to carry things for me a few times. I'm like, nope, I got it. They're like, give me that 50-pound bag. I got it. And but overall, they were very warm and receptive. They even got a few females after that. And I think now we even have some female cadets that are female fire. You are. That's like, you just try it. It doesn't matter if no one else is doing it. It doesn't matter if it's not the popular thing. If you like it, just try it.
It takes a lot of courage too. I mean, and curiosity on your part. I think that's really cool. Yeah.
Well, it's so funny. I'm going to say it again. This is my 4th time or something like that saying this during podcast. But we just talked to Corey Whitman yesterday, and he said the same thing. He said during your summers, go do something that you like to do. Like don't just follow the crowd or like don't put your hobbies aside. Do stuff that you want to do. I keep saying this. You and the 2 lieutenants that just graduated, who we did a podcast with as well, they have the same answers to a lot of things. There's very similar answers coming out of VMI. Mm-hmm. So it's just a funny pattern to see.
Yeah, and you never know. I mean, maybe that will help a career or a future job down the road. Or maybe it just turns into a very rewarding skill or just a fun hobby that lets you just relax when you're not working.
You talked a little bit before about happiness, and that's, I mean...
that's a part of it.
I mean, that's part of life that you...
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to be happy if you're fitting a mold, even if it is successful. You're not going to be happy if that's truly something that maybe deep down isn't for you.
You don't really want, So, last question. What does leadership mean to you?
Leadership to me is more about the growth behind it. It's less about the prestige and stuff of being a leader. It's more about shaping and developing and being that good, solid role model for the ones under you, because I think that's the type of leader that's just people are going to take off and just be super proud and want to work really hard for you, and having the intestinal fortitude to speak up and things that even if it's not going to be the most popular comment, I mean, as long as you're respectful and tactful in your delivery, that's what matters most. I mean, even with owning a retail store, I get asked all the time if I have a partner, because so much when I talk about my store, especially when I'm in my store, I say we all the time. I say we, the store, us. And it's just something, it's hard for me to say I own the store or I am the owner. Like most people, unless they directly ask me, I don't announce that I'm the owner of my store. And I think that's just very important to be humble as a leader and really giving a lot of kudos to your staff and especially when they have so much talent like they do.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Great.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for coming to the leadership conference as well.
It was helpful.
Yeah, no, it's I really like a lot of your answers because some were along the same lines, but but your insights, and especially as a woman, maybe here, and the idea of I didn't have the perfect cadetship, and that little bit of struggle. Oh boy, that really hits home. I think that.
I think today,
interesting.
That general that spoke, even they got nothing out of that brief, but just to see him and say I was a C+ student was awesome. Not just because that means I can be mediocre, but it means that person that they feel like that duck paddling under the water, and that there's not, they're really trying to be that model cadet, but they just, for some reason, it's just not in the cards for them, or they just don't have that perfect pipeline. It can show them that, hey, your growth and your development and you being a leader doesn't stop at VMI. Just because you didn't have this perfect cadetship doesn't mean that you can't still be a general down the road or a CEO or anything. It didn't mean like, that means it's okay to get bad grades.
I love that.
But I thought that was really important for people to hear, especially the ones that were possibly, struggling with their cadetship of fitting in or just having a purpose.
Awesome.
Right.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yay.
The VMI Center for Leadership and Ethics would like to thank the following:
Cadet Caleb Minus, Class of 20, for the intro and backing music. Find more of his musical stylings on his Instagram page, @MinusOfficial. That's @MYNUS official.
Colonel David Gray, United States Army retired, Director of the VMI Center for Leadership and Ethics.
And of course, as always, our podcast guests. Find this podcast and other CLE programming information on the VMI Center for Leadership and Ethics website, or try our YouTube channel.
Follow the VMI Center for Leadership and Ethics on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram accounts. See you next episode of The Journey. Thanks for tuning in.